We have a number of items on the agenda this evening. I am John Myers, the chair of the commission. With us this evening, we have Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Pinckney, Commissioner Garrity, Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Tobin, and Commissioner Hacker. I declare we have a quorum, so we can render decisions as required. We also invite, or we welcome the audience, and welcome the audience here this evening in person and on YouTube, so that we are covered that way. We have, I think, 5 people had signed up to provide comment, and the owner's representative also has signed up to, obviously, will be making comments. If the commission decides accordingly, we could ask other people to make comments if they wish to make a comment. And for all comments, we request that they remain on the topic under discussion and under the purview of the commission, and that they be held to 3 minutes in duration in the interest of time and everyone's time this evening. We will probably propose to the commission, if we decide to take a quick short break between the first 3 items on the agenda and the consideration of the Holland Avenue residences. So that, and that's really to excuse people that are here for other projects that don't need to hang around for the discussion on Holland Avenue. With that, also, sorry, Aaron Glennon from the Deputy Planning Director is our staff person, as is Christopher, thank you, Christopher Lohman. These little senior moments. Yeah. Christopher Lohman is the preservation planner for the city of Albany, and this is his second HRC meeting, so we're breaking him in quickly. And Jason Thomas from the Corporation Counsel's office is here to keep us on the straight and narrow and make sure that everything we do is legal and appropriate. And he is here to answer any questions that we may have. With that, we can start the meeting. The first item on the agenda, and all of the items today are a public hearing agenda for which decisions will be rendered. There is no workshop item today or this evening. The first item on the agenda is 90 State Street in the downtown Albany Historic District. Is there anyone here to represent that? Okay, if you would tell us who you are and who you represent.
Yeah, Kevin Descharnay, I represent ownership in this matter. So we applied for a permit and then we were sent to you.
You can sit.
Yep.
Oh yeah, please.
Thank you.
It's too hot to stand up.
Yeah. So yeah, we were kicked upstairs here to talk to you about the repair on our parapet. So we submitted some drawings. Originally, we had in addition to stabilization that was going to happen behind the parapet, there was a netting that was proposed, but that's since been eliminated. And I sent revised drawings out to your department. Luckily, it's not as bad a shape as we thought. So the only thing that would be visible to the outside are tiny little 4-inch by 4-inch plates. And what we were proposing is either to color match them to the terracotta, or I brought a picture with me. There is a diamond-shaped, it's a turquoise element that's on the building slightly lower. We're happy to match that color as well. But we would have 2 little brackets, which we line up with the more, with the blocks. So there'd be two little plates at every location that we have to support from behind with a parapet. So getting rid of the netting was a huge move. No one wanted to look at that netting. I understand that. So we were able to re-engineer it without it. So all you would see from the street level is these tiny 4-inch plates, and we would put them on a diamond pattern.
So what's happening? Stone is coming off, stone is separating from the...
Well, no, the whole parapet was taking on water prior to us getting involved, and so we've stabilized it, we've waterproofed the backside, but just belt suspenders, we're going to anchor it back to the building behind the scenes, and we would add these little plates from the front. And now that the water has been stopped, it should be there for another 100 years.
So it's a veneer, stone veneer.
It's actually terracotta block, and behind it is a brick veneer. These are all terracotta blocks. Part of this work is, yeah, sorry.
And there are no roof penetrations. These are kind of dead man sleds that are ballasted sleds.
Exactly right. Yep.
You investigated any other type of anchors?
All kinds. Believe me. And so this was the we just put a brand new roof on the building, and this was the preferred method. We don't want to start drilling into the building again. So it's a weight system, with ballast, and also we stopped the water infiltration. So that's the good news. So we would also be, during this phase, we would be re-caulking and repointing everything from those window heads up, and then sealing the terracotta that's lost its protective skin with a clear coating that just keeps the water out.
Suggestion, the Prosoco makes a, they call it stitch tie, and it's a helical. It almost looks like a drill bit, and drill a hole through the veneer and the backup masonry. You insert this anchor, and it holds it together.
Okay.
And can do it through the masonry joints, and it's a way of re-anchoring. Something that you probably won't see, because then you just fill in the water joint hole. It's like 3/16 of an inch. They've installed it, well, I've read about it, and they install it every 2 square feet.
Okay.
Something to think about.
No, I'll look into it.
Do we know did we see an elevation, an interior or an exterior elevation to know the spacing?
Yeah. So in the plans that
In
we
the
sent
plan,
around,
that's the one.
right, in the plan view, those are
Yeah.
the locations.
And what's the spacing in it?
Well, this is diagrammatic, but we would actually line it up with, we would make sure to line it up so that, this made sense on the exterior, but that's roughly kind of the spacing we were looking at, in typical elevation.
So these are we don't have this.
Yeah, no, I just brought that with me tonight because I thought it might explain it better.
Okay. And so the markings that you have,
Are the tiny little plates,
that you're adding,
yes.
and they're all, I know they're threaded stainless steel. These are all stainless as well?
Yeah, they'd be stainless, but I'm willing to, get them coated to match that turquoise color, or we can match the terracotta.
And the turquoise is?
Is right there. See that right here on the building? We have that element. We would match that color.
But these are new elements?
Those are new elements, right?
Okay.
You could also match the terracotta
Yep,
color,
happy
which
to do
would
that.
be not introducing a new element.
Correct, absolutely. I'm happy to go either way you guys would like.
So who's running the show over there? Hello.
Would you like,
The blow up detail, please, of detail 2 on S2. That one, yeah, if you could blow that up.
this one?
Perfect.
And the plates are 4-inch square.
4-inch square, yeah.
Barely see it from the street.
Yeah, this is 15 stories, this building.
And I think this is something else you mentioned, but not related to what we're talking about right now. What did you talk about with the coating for the terracotta?
Oh, yeah, just if there's, so the terracotta has like a naturally smooth skin. The exterior is blistered off in some places, so it's porous now. So we were just gonna seal that with a clear sealer so that the water stops.
What material is it? Yeah. Which material?
With,
Which sealing?
there's a GeoSeal product that's clear. It comes in a gloss and a matte. It's totally clear once you paint it on, but it's basically lifetime on porous masonry.
Do you know what the composition is of geoseal? Are you with the engineering firm? Or
No ownership.
Ownership. So what's the geoseal? What's the material? Is it a silicone product? Is it an acrylic product? What is it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know we use that on other historic buildings. And again, it's mostly because of the original terracotta skin is compromised after 100 years.
Well, it probably lost some of its glaze, is what you're telling us.
That's exactly right.
Because of
Right.
some moisture getting in there. That's right. Is the product specifically for terracotta units, do you know? Or have you looked at any products that are specifically for terracotta units, which have their special needs because of porosity and other things?
Yeah, this is so this is the epoxy-based resin.
Do you have, Chris, do you have that information that you'd be able to share with us?
That is what I am trying to find right now. Kevin, is it the same Dallas, is it the Dallas brand?
Yes.
Give me 1 second.
Are you putting this on the upper course? This isn't, you're not applying this on the entire building?
No, it's only the
like
top that's
hatching where-
just from those window heads up where the glazing is missing.
You could change the color of it.
Well, I mean, again,
Possibly.
it's already changed because it's lost its skin. So I think if anything, it's going to help it. It's gotten lighter where it's missing skin. Just a little darken it a little bit.
You ever thought about reskinning it? Applying another coat similar to the sound coat?
I mean, I suppose, but then where do you stop? I mean, it's a whole, that detail goes all the way down the building.
I think I'd recommend, if you're all okay with this, that we get a little closer on our terminology. We're not quite, I think skimming is a generic term. What we're really talking about, I think, is that the glaze coating has been lost. The terracotta, the baked terracotta unit behind it is presumably sound. And so what we're really probably talking about is a new coating on the terracotta where it's missing. So I think if we can.
So it can be a coating matching the original glazed coating.
Well, it won't be reglazed.
Or
It's a coat. Keep
or
going.
it's a waterproofing. He's talking about something like a waterproofing type agent. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to say I think we need to be more specific. I think what we're talking about, in my mind, would be what kind of a coating is appropriate to be for this area where the original glaze has been compromised. And the questions would be A, what is the material that's appropriate to the terracotta? And B, how can it be carefully selected so that the color of this new material matches the adjacent intact glaze on the terracotta? So I think that's really the question about the coating on where the glaze has been lost. It's a little more precise for the conversation.
Understood. I mean, there is no color. It's totally clear. So.
Are you saying that it's clear where the glaze has been lost, or the color?
No, I'm saying the coating that we would put on is clear. It's just a sealer.
But this is an opportunity to, when we're doing work, to do a repair that matches the original, that makes it more consistent, because we have the opportunity to do that now.
Right.
So,
Do you have loose samples of the terracotta that can be sent to the manufacturer or that
No,
can
you
be
would have to put
used
one
for?
on the building, I don't really want to do that.
No, no.
No, I mean, these are big blocks, I mean,
Yeah.
the original, and, but no, I don't have any. We could do a test area and on the backside where no one sees it and just see what what the color would look like clear, but I know if you look at, can I see that color map? These light patches, that's where it's missing. So,
understood.
by enhancing it with the clear sealer, it will get darker naturally and it will tie in better. I wouldn't want to get into color tinting, but I would just want to stop the degradation.
I guess my preference would be through all of this effort that you're doing,
Right.
that we take the next step, and then we also make sure that the material that we're using is appropriate to the terracotta, number one, and number two, that a color match, and in general, the sheen match are as close as possible to the existing that is sent.
Erin, do you have a copy of that photo you put on the screen?
The only thing that I have in the PowerPoint is
It's a little teeny photo.
which
It's hard to make it out there.
is what was in the initial submission.
Also, Jess, because I did find it, the Dowacell contractor sealant guide that is part of the original permit they had submitted last year. It does involve stating that Dow does do a cured sealant sample for accurate color matching to ensure that it won't break the color.
Did we see that? That material's not in our packet.
Yeah, it should be. That's actually, I misspoke. The Dow is the caulk. Caulk is color matched. The sealer was not.
Okay, now I'm confused. So was what you just described, that wasn't in, did I miss it? Is that in our packet?
No, because that's from an old permit that this was involved with from 2023.
Okay. Should we be discussing then the questions that I'm asking right now, or was it already
No,
approved or
it's-
handled?
No, it wasn't. It was
Okay.
under a non-closed permit.
Okay, so this is an appropriate discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we should take a look at the material to make sure that it's appropriate for terracotta, the coating. And again, the assumption, in my opinion, would be that the coating should be both installed following manufacturer's recommendations, which would be critical for the basement for it to be lasting, and also to match the color. Whatever final coating is selected is appropriate, that it matches the color.
Color and sheen.
And sheen, yes. So we should get some more information about that.
And we're looking specifically to know that this coating is appropriate for terracotta when it's been exposed after it's lost its glazings, because
That's right.
it's not like it's fired terracotta that was always meant to be. This is a very specific application. And probably if the manufacturer has examples of its application in this instance, especially if we've seen how it's worn.
The manufacturer's recommendations, which we don't usually drill down that far, but you will want to. For sure, we'll make sure once the coating's been lost and once there's water that has gone in there, it's likely that there's salts that have risen to the surface. And so in the manufacturer's recommendations for the selected material, they'll probably direct you to identify if there are any salts on the surface, any efflorescence or salt on the surface, because if you don't address that, then you're going to have a failure from the salts. So once we know the material, that the final material to be used, then it's if it's the product that you're proposing now, we can take a look at that and kind of review it. But again, we need to be sure that it's for terracotta.
Because as Commissioner Kaplan said, we don't, it wouldn't be in the owner's interest to put on a coating that's going to fail and create a worse situation in a number of years, so.
Understood.
So what are your thoughts on the anchoring? It works.
Yeah, it'll work, and it's far, as you said, it's kind of pretty high above street level. I think if the plates are stainless and the rods are stainless and the sealant is appropriate, there's other ways that are more substantial repairs that I'm assuming the engineers have determined are not necessary in full rebuilding. And I think that if I wouldn't add another color, as Commissioner Tobin said, it would be again a match to, that's a different coating process, because now you're coating on stainless, so you care about your primer and then care about the coating. It's different than on the masonry. But I think that would be, and also as you indicated, you'd be going through the joints. The joints are 1/2 inch or 3/4?
Yeah, they're 3/4.
No, I don't think he's going through stone either.
Yeah, so, right, so we can, I'm gonna get a further back. Actually, let's see from here. Yeah, it's, we have the option actually with the spacing, we could probably do either. I would rather go through the joints than stone.
Yeah, I would agree. What did you say about the joints? What did I hear?
3/4?
No, like a couple minutes ago.
Oh.
Why did I think you?
Well, they have a sealant that they're using to seal the joints, because
Yeah,
there's probably
there's
mortar
caulk
loss in there.
There is caulking to be done around windows and things, and then where there's visible cracks, so that down sealant would be color matched to the terracotta. That was the one that he brought up before, that was submitted previously.
I mentioned for Soko product.
You mentioned it. Okay.
An anchor that
Okay.
it's called stitch tie.
Okay. In through the joints.
In through.
Thank you. Okay. Has anyone been up close on the facade to see the terracotta and all the joints, or is it, what extent, what's the condition of all the joints? Are you planning to 100% repoint or recaulk or
100% repoint and recaulk from the window heads up.
from the window heads up?
Everything below that seems fine.
And is it mortar now or is it ceiling?
It's both. The building's been repaired over the last 100 years by both.
Should we make a site inspection?
Yeah.
Site inspection.
Binoculars, yeah. So.
You don't want to go up.
Oh, yeah.
Hang over the edge.
No, I don't know about hanging over the edge.
It's the final use of the building when everything's all done,
It's residential and retail on the ground floor.
just the ground floor. Wonderful.
Is it residential now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just converted. I mean, that was phase one was, we just finished the last apartment floor back at the end of the year, December. And we'll be renovating the lower levels, the old Maurice's Deli and all that stuff for retail.
Is this something that we can split into 2 pieces where I feel like we might have resolution on the anchors, but questions about the coatings?
Well, the third point, which I think we'd like to discuss is, and I'll ask others their experience. It's one thing to use sealant where there's different materials that are adjacent to each other. That's its purpose, typically. But otherwise, these would have been mortar joints.
Yeah.
And an appropriate long-term repair of a masonry building is with mortar joints. It's not with sealants. And sealants are shorter lived and they fail. And even the silicone sealants fail. And they present another problem with sealants, the silicone, because it leaves oil and then it makes it very difficult long-term to repoint with mortar. You have to go through a whole silicone heater process. So I think that's a conversation for us. It's not a large wholesale repair of terracotta with sealant is not a long-lived approach to masonry restoration. So I don't know where we'd like to be on that discussion. Again, it's one thing in a sort of small area perhaps, certainly where wood or steel window frames are adjacent to the terracotta or another material, that's where you use sealant, but it's not really intended for wholesale masonry repair.
It's not repointing. It's not repointing.
So I guess if I understood that, but if we have questions, it sounds like the anchors we might have consensus-ish on or have, but then the repointing sealant coating question would be, sounds like, I personally, I feel like we need more information on, and I guess I don't know if we can divide those two things to have resolution on the anchors and then get more information on the other pieces. That was sort of my question.
Yeah, I don't know what the advantage from a construction standpoint is, because you want to go there once.
Right.
Well, that and also we're coming into where we're pretty soon, if we get colder and we need this done. I mean, we have a sidewalk bridge up now, we're leaving it up until this work is done. We'd like to get going, so I will prepare everything that I've heard and you need to make your decision, but I really implore that we can do this, if not this meeting, by next meeting. I will give you whatever supplemental samples and literature you need, but we are racing going into winter, so that's my answer. And then we'd like to take down the sidewalk bridge, which we have up just because, we want to do this work and, finish it up.
You can do like a partial approval, you could approve a portion of the application and for additional information, whatever information you feel is necessary. Be able to review the application, or you also just could do a conditional approval and request additional information. So either way. Thank you.
Given that guidance, does anybody want to,
I'm sorry.
given that guidance, does anyone feel prepared to make a motion?
I make a motion that we conditionally approve the anchoring system. And that we request additional information regarding repointing and the coating for the terracotta.
Could I add that the anchoring should occur in the joints, not through the terracotta box?
And maybe switch to the color. Yeah. Of the,
And should match the terracotta.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But the anchors are stainless steel.
right. But rather than add as proposed, as discussed, the turquoise, decorative color that existed at another location in the building, that's where we got to match it.
Do we have a coherent motion?
Make a motion to approve the anchoring system. That the anchors go through the mortar joints. And that you will provide us with more information on the glaze sealant that you propose to use. And that
Pointed.
the repointing, yeah. I think we should we recommend pointing rather than installing caulking in joints. Like Commissioner Kaplan said, the caulking cracks. Caulking is not long-lived. And once it starts cracking, we get water in the joints. And mortar itself is a much more longer-lasting alternative, and will match the original as close as possible. The original.
We may need a little bit more clear of a motion to approve, just like when it goes into written form in terms of what to put down. So I think the goal here would be maybe like a motion to partially approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness. And then I don't understand all the specifics of what you guys are talking about at all. So I would just say to grant the certificate for, you know, the things that you are okay with them proceeding with, and then to defer approval for that areas would be less additional.
I make a motion for the third time.
We need the comment. We need the comment.
I make a motion for the third time to conditionally approve the anchoring system that you propose. Anything I should add about the car?
The joints and the comments.
That it should match the mortar, the joints of the mortar, and that we request additional information on repointing mortar and the sealant slash coating for the terracotta. Yes, the anchoring system is to go through the mortar joints.
Yeah. I'm waiting to be seconded.
I'll second the
motion.
Okay.
Can I speak? Right. So that was great, but I think,
Oh, Jesus.
but you got that was great, bolts through the mortar joints, protecting terracotta. And the other is that I think that the coating system on the stainless steel plates match the color of the sound terracotta. I think that got lost. The coating, so the finished color of those visible brackets, those visible plates in the exterior.
So Marilyn, you will need to put forward a motion to amend.
Okay.
A friendly motion.
Okay.
Then it'll need to be seconded, you will need to accept that you're putting forward a motion to amend. And then we can include that in the motion.
Okay, ready? Yeah. Okay, so I make a motion to amend the, to amend your motion, Commissioner Pinckney's motion, and that the color of the exterior facing stainless steel plates be tested and selected to match the color and sheen of the sound terracotta glazing. The original sound terracotta glazing. That's my proposed amendment.
Second.
Did you second your own?
No, I second hers.
He's seconding the motion to amend his previous motion. So you would then vote on the motion to amend, which then would just amend the initial motion, and then you would still vote.
You'd still have to second the amended motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I just did.
Quite the process.
Which I just did. I just seconded her.
Yeah, exactly. You're on the right track.
Okay. Can we vote on it?
Yeah. May I ask you a question?
Please.
Which I hate to do it. What we just voted was that these stabilizers would go through the mortar. And yet what I see here,
Yeah,
with about one exception, that's what happens, and that's right in the center. The rest of them are going through each panel.
Yeah, just like on the street.
I think that's why we specified that it had to go through
We'll
the
have to
mortar
adjust
joints,
the map.
because of that. For just
So
that
you're
reason.
satisfied that that's in that resolution? the way
We will adjust it to not go through
Yes.
the
Because
lot.
if it goes through every mortar joint, you've got a plate on it, you've got a plate at both ends of each individual stone,
Yes.
because it overlaps. Okay.
Sure, we like to take it one way.
The drawing,
You got long arm?
drawing shows that virtually all of them are going through there.
Yeah, having this drawing earlier might have been helpful, along with some of that information.
Say those upper mortar joints, plates proposed, you're not gonna see much of that, but the ones here.
Okay, I'm going to call this to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented and seconded?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's carried.
Do we need to vote one more time now, right?
Yeah, just for good measure. All right, so now you want to vote on,
That was on the amendment.
so now you make a motion to vote on the motion as over done.
Okay. Now I'll call a vote on the amended motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's on civics.
So I appreciate you taking care of your building.
Yep.
It's a very nice building.
I love the building, been there for 2.5 years renovating.
Well, thank you. and
Thank you.
We appreciate your time and look forward to receiving additional information. The next item on the agenda is 269 South Pearl Street in the South End Roseville Historic District. And there are a number of rehabilitation measures that are being proposed for this building. Is there someone to speak on that front?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing today?
Good. If you could introduce yourself and
Sure, I'll start. My name is Sam Simmons. I'm an owner of Simmons Design and Development. I'm working in conjunction with architect Keith Kramer to provide a design for the rehabilitation of this historic property owned by my good friend here, Mr. Stefano Marcino. Yes.
okay,
Nice to meet you all.
nice meeting you.
It's a nice building, man. Very nice building.
Yes, very nice building, definitely needs some work, but that's what we're here for.
You want to just give us a brief overview of what you are proposing to do as part of the rehabilitation?
So essentially, I don't know if you want to, it'd probably be easier if you go down to our elevations. Okay, so here's the front and rear elevation. There's some brick repointing that needs to happen. We have several wood pediments over a couple of those windows that are badly rotted. And at this point, they're a source of water infiltration into the building. So we're looking to remove most of those. We'll keep the pediment that's over the main entry door, which is a nice historical architectural feature. So that's on the elevation you see at the top. In the back, we're not doing much to the back besides, as you can see, right under the mansard roof windows, there's a roof awning that sticks out. Currently, those are boxed-in gutters, the original boxed-in gutters. Those things have been failing for years. They've caused some heavy brick deterioration below. And so our plan is to essentially infill that boxed-in gutter, make it a roof awning. We'll finish it with metal flashing, and then we'll install an aluminum gutter along the outside. It'll still keep with the traditional historic look. I don't think most people will notice it from the ground. But as I said, these boxed-in gutters are a heavy source of water infiltration. That's probably the bulk of this work, is just basically tightening up the envelope of the building, which has seen heavy deterioration over the years. In the back of the building, there's not really much we're doing in the back besides the boxed-in gutters. As you'll see, yep, right there, the mansard roof windows right there, you'll see that roof awning. As I said, all that is planned to be infilled. So it'll no longer be a boxed-in gutter, it'll be a awning roof with an aluminum gutter. To the bottom right, you'll see a small roof overhang, which is an entry door on the south side of the building. Currently, the actual roof structure is missing. It's basically just the structure there. We're looking to infill that roof with a small shingle roof. If you want to go to the next page. Well, do you guys have any questions so far?
And everything is being repainted? All the brick is being repainted?
Yes, repointed and repainted for the most part. The top elevation would be the north elevation. Those pediments, wood pediments that are over the windows, as you can see, once again, they're badly deteriorated. I have more pictures on the last page of this set, but just going over the scope. These are a big item that we're looking, hopefully you guys can approve this, is there's 4 chimney stacks on the north and south elevations. Right now, they're mostly covered in cement, part cementitious coating. Those chimneys are failing badly, allowing a lot of water into the building, adding to the problem that we have with those existing gutters. So what we're proposing is to demolish all 4 of those chimneys. We'll infill that to match the existing roof, and then we'll, with the roof trim along the top, we'll infill that with a wooden roof trim. So essentially, it'll just go away. This will be very costly if we have to rebuild it, and right now it's really not structurally sound, so the best thing is to remove it. If you want to
Presumably, they're non-functional chimneys.
Non-functional, correct.
But they're original. Original to the
From
building.
what we could find, it was hard to find information on this building. I was hoping you guys would have more information for us, but I didn't find too much, any like old pictures or anything like that we could look at and say what was original, what was maybe added years afterwards. This is the south elevation. As you can see, that's that southerly entry door, which we'll put a new roof on. And if you look up at the top, you'll see the outlines of where the existing chimneys are now that will be demolished. So essentially, as far as, you guys are concerned for the exterior, that's the scope of the work that we're planning to do. Yep. Those are some actual pictures if you want to zoom in. We're proposing to go back with some synthetic slate shingles. I have a couple specified up there. We'll make sure they match as closely as possible.
So those slates were all painted over?
Yes, they've been painted over for years, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you using any of the state and federal tax credits for the project?
No, we're not. It's just, at this point, it's all being funded by a good friend over here. And that's something that he's definitely looking into to see what grants are available. And possibly, if you guys could suggest anything, that would be great.
We had, and then we provided in communication that he does have some of the info for the state and federal. We told him to help him kind of get that process started.
So most of your windows, original windows are 2 over 2.
Yes,
2 lights over 2 lights.
Correct.
Are you going to repair them or replace them?
Right now, there's a mix of vinyl windows, which clearly aren't original, and the wooden windows that are original, we do look to repair.
Okay.
And, where we can, we'll just make sure that the vinyl windows are painted to at least match, make all the windows match essentially.
So you mean the vinyl windows up in the mansard?
Correct. Yep. And there's also vinyl windows in other areas of the building as well.
So some notes I have, and if you do pursue the State Preservation Office, the 20% state and the 20% federal tax credits, which are pretty substantial. Our comments here will be focused on the exterior, and their purview goes from the exterior to the interior. But probably we're looking into seriously that's credits can go backwards and forwards, et cetera. So a couple of comments I had from the presentation. One is the removal of the pediments.
Yes.
Are they all added?
I want to say they were added after the original structure was built, but I have no proof of that other than just it doesn't seem to match the year the building was. It doesn't seem to match the time period of when that building was actually built. So.
And the construction date was?
Right now on the front it has 18. Or I'm sorry, can you go up?
The clock said 1850.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like some more information, whether it's a site visit or other, but the removal of the pediments is like, that's something we should spend some time understanding to make sure that the treatment there is appropriate. Okay. The roof slate, shingles, that's not really the source of your problems because they're so vertical, but the gutters are, I get it, they're a big problem.
Yes.
So the slate shingles, just for everyone to note that the slate's coming off and there's an asphalt shingle being proposed to go back on. The chimneys, I would suspect are original. And again, just with some of the details from the photos look like that, and there's symmetrical placement and that there's 4. So that's the question that was asked. I think that's part of our discussion as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
So as I was measuring up the building, I noticed that if you look to the right, that section on the right of the main entry door seems to be some sort of addition that was added on later.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me think whenever they added that addition, and actually if you go in the back, there's a small addition as well. So there has been some additions added on since the original. That's the reason why. That's what made us believe that possibly the pediments were original as well.
Okay. So the challenge in our world here is that over time, some of those additions are considered to acquire their own significance.
Okay.
So we're not always in the business of just returning the building to as originally constructed, but if changes are significant as well, pay attention there. And again, in particular, if you do look at the state and federal tax credits, that's some of the conversation that will come up.
Okay.
So I would ask just that we kind of put that on our list. The mansard roof is a very significant character-defining feature of the building, and it's the built-in gutters are troublesome, and there's been some kind of flashing that's been installed to them. And did you use the word awning about the gutters?
I'm calling it an awning roof.
What is it?
It's essentially just a small skirt roof. So instead of it being a gutter, it would just be infilled with wood.
Okay, so you're going to infill over.
Exactly, and then add an aluminum gutter along the outside to catch that shedding water.
Right. So we really, in the state, would look for what's the profile of the existing that's visible. So not necessarily the concave of the built-in gutter, but what's under that metal? What's the profile of that trim, right? And then how would it be altered by your infill and then the hanging of the K-style gutter outside of that? So almost a comparison of what's there original underneath that metal that's been added.
Right.
And
this isn't metal. That's some sort of modified bitumen.
Okay.
And there's bits of rubber as well. So yeah.
The bottom. So there's there's kind of four columns of photos.
Yep.
The bottom one, the second over.
Yes.
That's the module.
Yes.
Okay. So the point is, underneath that is an original profile, and what is that? That's my question.
Okay.
Okay. And how would that compare with what you're proposing?
From what it looks like in the research on boxed-in gutters, it literally just looks like a concave profile. I don't think there's any decorative feature in there.
It has an outer, I'm more interested for this conversation with the outer profile.
Okay, the actual fascia.
That you call that,
Okay,
that's exactly right.
okay. And once again, I didn't see any decorative features on that fascia as well. It just seems to be aluminum flashing wrapped around, and that's it. I wish I had better pictures to put in there.
There's something there. I don't know what it is. I can't tell from the photos, but it would have had some sort of a profile.
Can you scroll up to the, okay, bottom left, let's zoom in. You see that, it's just not much of a profile, it's not real details on
I think it's been covered over.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
you know, that's brake metal that has been covered, or has covered over what the original profile was. So if you pull that off, that would reveal the profile and then what steps you would take to attach a new gutter to that.
And then the last,
so is that a directive, is that something that?
I'm putting it here for the commissioners to
Okay.
review.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last question I would ask is, the treatment of the windows is, it's not very specific yet. You know, there's some vinyl and there's some wood 2/2, and which would be better, it would be good, I think, to know exactly which windows are having which treatment. And also, will there be, it's great to restore the windows, that's terrific. Will there be storm windows installed on those? Are you going to try to get a double glazing in there? So a question like that, I think we might want to discuss.
So, I would say for your project proposal, you had mentioned you are leaving the windows out of this project proposal, right? You're doing windows in a future project?
Yes, that would be the goal.
Okay.
And then I'll put on my list for a working list, there'll clearly be more masonry work going on.
Yes, yes.
And so you want to make sure that the mortar you're using is soft mortar and it's not harder than a brick, it doesn't cause a whole cycle there. So
Understood.
that'll be important also, once we understand really what you're doing and get a bit of guidance on the mortar mix. It will all be repainted.
Yes, it'll all be repainted, yes. If
Yeah.
you have any mortar specification, you can
Yeah.
definitely add that.
It's not typically a Portland cement mortar, that's too hard. So
Okay.
it's like a type O.
Okay.
Type O.
Yes.
Paint a little softer. That's what I'm.
The slate roof has a pattern.
Yes.
And would you put the same pattern back?
Yes, the pattern is a mixture of beveled edge and traditional
Yep,
square
round,
edge.
round, flat, flat.
Yes,
round,
yes.
round.
It's not really, it looks round, but if you zoom in, it's more of a bevel.
Right.
But yes, the goal is to, and that's what we specified if you actually zoom up.
So I didn't see it, so you see here that they're replacing it with a pattern asphalt shingle?
No.
I didn't say pattern, but in the
Oh.
package is a synthetic slate.
I saw the synthetic slate.
That's all I know.
Oh, okay,
If
because I
you-
was thinking it would be like that flat, like the typical hard synthetic slate.
If you,
Like the
if you
rubber.
actually scroll over to the right a little bit. Who's
Aaron
the
knows.
pilot?
Aaron.
If you move over to the right, it actually specified the shingles.
Yeah.
It's in the packet.
Yeah.
For-
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, I just misheard about
It's the
about
Eco
asphalt.
Star slate. There's a-
To the right of where it says beveled edge slate shingles, if you could pan over to that section of the page.
Yeah, so this was part of why the email had mentioned, like, you might have to have the packet.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, we can get it zoomed in. Some of these pictures just have issues.
It's the Eco Star slate.
Correct.
Yeah, I see that, and it does look like it's the patterns
Yep.
to match, and I see the color choice, which matches the painted slate.
The 1851 date, going with the historic Albany plaque, there had to have been a report on the history of the building in order to get that plaque. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that.
I don't know whether this one or the one next to it was Dr. Reisberger's home. They're very prominent people. He was a physician, service people in that neighborhood, was very well known. And it was a family home for a long time, quite elegant.
Right.
And the one next door as well. When I look at the one next door, it's more original. This one got gussied up in the Victorian era. And so the way it originally looked may have been less elegant when they got into the 90s.
And that's why I thought the pediments were maybe an
Yeah, a
addition.
little.
The name on it was William Moore Ice Maker, and I was,
Did we,
used AI, used Google to everything to try to find something on the guy, and I couldn't find any William Moore
Did you-
Ice Maker.
Did you call Historic Albany Foundation?
No, I didn't. That's probably what I should have started, right?
we-
I think they've got a file on it. When they got that oval plaque, that a lot of things were put in it, I'm sure.
Okay. I'll definitely reach out.
Well, on the drawing, there's a Historic Albany Foundation oldest building inventory, 469 South Pearl Street. It says 1854, William Moore, first owner.
Yep.
1870 to 75, the mansard roof was
Yep.
added.
That seems more.
And
That's more like it,
I
yeah.
would say that the pediments came in over the windows when the mansard roof was added.
Right.
You've got two different styles kind of conversing with each other on
I'd
the
say
building,
the four chimneys were from day one though. That would be my
but that's
guess.
not that tall. They would
Yeah,
have been a little
sure.
short. If they added,
Yeah.
if the mansard was a whole story added to the building, then the chimneys
Would have gone up.
would have gone up with it.
Yeah. I mean,
And so that 1875 edition is also important,
That
as
should be
Commissioner
placed as
Catlin
roof.
said, it's not just the 1851
Yeah.
statute.
Who knows what kind of-
Advantage to you right
Yes,
now is that Historic Albany is here, so maybe after the meeting.
What's your schedule for construction on the exterior?
well, we're going through the process of getting approved for the historic for you guys, and then we have to submit this to the city for actual building permit for all the interior work. So considering if you guys approve everything today, and then we can finalize the construction documents we have. I imagine 6 weeks from now we'll get an approval. So we're looking to start maybe November. Of course, that's weather dependent, which would kick us into the spring, but at least the interior work can begin. And we plan to hit it hard. Or maybe we have another warm winter. So we're aware of the 40-degree cold weather requirements for masonry.
So it's still have the wrought iron fence in the front that went by it.
Yes, and that's in very good condition, all around.
Is that in the picture somewhere?
Not, you just an aside to it yet.
No, but maybe if you pull up Google Maps.
Yeah, Janet, you could, I've got it up right here if you want to. So what would you all think of following? I think we have a lot, I would hope that we have a lot of information that we'd be able to share with you.
Yes.
That would, with a site visit, that would be really helpful. And it would help us get a little bit clearer as to some of the things we're asking about. And also, there's a lot of the construction and other experience here that I would hope would be welcome on the project.
Absolutely.
It's most likely you're going to get, unless you've got any emergency work to keep water out right now that you're taking on, you're probably going into the interior for the winter.
Yes.
And so the possibility of both arranging a site visit, to kind of assist with the exterior scope of work. And we may want to have those conversations to determine if the tax credits are useful for the project. Because if they are, some of our comments will have applicability there. But I would think since we have no jurisdiction on the interior, that we could proceed with a way that permits the city to issue a permit for interior demo for the building department for their interior demo and or their work, and that the exterior related work is not yet approvable.
we have done that before.
Yeah.
They can split it into two different permits. One being for interior removal without touching the exterior envelope, or items such as windows that are part of the exterior envelope.
But in this case, they're keeping the windows.
Right,
Okay.
but like,
We
you know, for
specify
other
that. Yes,
things, like we
understood.
have that specified,
Understood.
and then they could come back at a later date to just for the exterior stabilization work to a separate permit. Because it does get a little wonky with having it being submitted as one permit for all of the work. In some cases, just for like material purposes. So it may be better to do it as two separate permits if that's what you have to do.
So in essence, this package that we've got would be, it would be recalled from us now and adjusted so that they can just go for the interior work or the interior demo.
Structural, maybe.
Yeah,
Well,
Maybe needed inside as
I
well.
mean, the permit that you currently are reviewing is only for exterior work.
Okay,
So
that's right.
Floor
That would
plans are here just
remain-
for context, but we're just reviewing exterior.
I was worried that the tie-in between the building department saying, where's your C of A?
right,
How does that get
Right.
separated into the
So,
building department? But that's, we don't have to worry about
if they
that.
only call out, if someone submitted a permit for interior work only with just those plans, that could go through the building department. If it was a full scope of work for interior and exterior, that gets a little bit more difficult. Just for the issuance of the permit, things like that from the building department.
And for the sake of the project as well, because the scope shifted a little between the application to obviously you guys getting the submission. They did a couple of edits and revisions based on some feedback. In-kind work is handled administratively as well. So if they wanted to get approval, put the stuff that you guys require the site visit for, they could put off for the major later, and they could also get a minor for in-kind repair and things like that. But that would just be handled by a staff.
So I guess first, does that kind of splitting approach feel comfortable for the other commissioners and does it make sense for you all?
So what would be the time frame if we were to split between two permits? I mean, our
So
goal was
there
to,
currently are no permits submitted to the city of Albany. We only have a certificate of appropriateness application currently in front of you.
So we don't have anything to
We
split.
have nothing to split, and we have no real purview over the building permit process, how they wish to submit their building permit.
They need the certificate of appropriateness from this board to be able to get it.
For the exterior.
Yeah, and it's just about the exterior renovations, nothing interior, anything like that.
So we're not holding them up for if we don't
For
approve.
interior work,
The interior work can move forward. We don't.
when they want to submit that permit.
Yes, they need to make a site inspection. Yes.
It's to y'all.
You need to make a site inspection. You make a motion to, schedule a site inspection as quickly as possible, so we can go over these things. Yeah. 'Cause there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of things happening.
They're good things.
Yeah, they're all good things.
Yeah.
Chimneys, I don't know about, I don't know, we have to take a look.
Yes.
sure, love to see you.
Can you please clarify, is the site visit being scheduled as part of a deferral or tabling of the current application that you're reviewing? Please clarify. Are you deferring consideration of the current application to a later meeting while we schedule a
That's what
site
you want.
visit?
So you'd say motion to defer or table to a later meeting, so we can schedule a site. That's all you're.
Yeah, and we prefer to have the approval of the certificate of appropriateness. That way we can just move forward and put our complete package together for our actual building permit. So that would be ideal for us. And unless you're saying that it would take a while to schedule a site visit, then,
No, that would.
Well,
No time at all.
I think it could take time to, A, schedule a site visit, B, do some of the research or the product research, et cetera, that you would need to do to modify the construction documents, et cetera. That's not quick. And so if you, as I understand this conversation, if instead you'd like to proceed with the interior work independent and on a parallel track, well, that process goes, that involves us on the exterior, goes forward. Independently, you could go to the city building department and receive a permit for the interior work, to which we have no jurisdiction. So that would be your call, you're the applicant, but ours may take some time.
and when you say sometime.
Well, I don't know how,
It's a good way to get you started inside with that permit.
with the interior.
Remember, just the
And
interior
I'm
work.
just worried about, as I said, there's water infiltration into the building, so we
There's no concern.
start doing interior work and, yeah.
And we want to come and meet with you and have a discussion about it and help you, guide you through what would be the best results.
Where's the water coming in right now that you're most worried about?
Around the chimneys and several places on the south side and north side, basically all elevations where there's a box tank gutter.
Okay.
The box tank gutter's about 18 inches wide.
Yep.
We get a lot of snow and ice that comes right off of that mansard roof
Yep.
with that steep pitch. It sits there, it finds its way into the building, so.
I understand the reasoning why you would like to put awnings over the top to help shed that
Yeah.
water and that flashing. And there's also interest in finding what's underneath that break metal, what kind of profiles you might be there. It might still be there, or it might just be completely eroded away.
Right.
So, but you're on the right track, and I think if you get in there and start digging in a little bit, getting that, do your removals or your discovery or your structural stuff kind of understood, it's a good way to take off while we plan a site visit, correct?
Well, the comprehensive exterior envelope repairs, which is great, that's really separate, I would think, and that's the long, as compared to what you just spoke to, which is possibly short-term measures to stop water coming into the building. Right, you might get up there and patch for the season, you're not ready to take on a whole whatever, but water's coming in there.
I mean, we're working with tight budgets. We'd like to hit it once and not have contractors come out here multiple times
Understood.
and pay for multiple mobilizations.
Yep.
So this is our goal. We want to get everything approved by you guys, approved by the city, hit it hard, get the best bang for our buck.
Well, why don't we schedule a site visit? And then we'll kind of know from that what, of all these items that are clearly not issues once we're there, or additional items that come up. And again, do please see if you can figure out around the tax credits. Because we would hate to think something's kind of okay when, if we knew you were going to look at the tax credits for the state and the National Park Service, that it wouldn't be acceptable. That would be really unfortunate.
Which we can set up a call and Aaron can talk you through.
So it sounds like what you're saying is for the tax credits, there's a bit of more extensive review of the structure to
Yeah.
receive those tax credits.
It will create some delay.
Okay, and if we didn't want tax credits, not to say we'll fund it all, but in the essence of time and moving forward with the projects, he's looking to get his family in there right now. They're in between housing right now, so he's looking to get in there as soon as
Are you
possible.
gonna live in the building?
Yeah,
You're not.
he's
Oh, that's a
Oh.
whole different, that's much easier. Yes, well,
Yes.
did you guys, have you talked to them
I
about
didn't
homeowner
understand that
tax
either.
credit?
No,
No, I'm just asking them, when you talked to them, you were specific to the homeowner?
It's been a flux between just whether they wanted to pursue or not upfront for this project, future projects, what they want to,
Okay,
based on.
well, that will be easier. So that's good news. But that doesn't, I don't think change, we have a motion on the table?
There were no seconds though, so if you guys just want to maybe start from scratch.
Yeah,
Don't second it until that ironed out.
I'd like to put forth the motion to set up a site visit.
So motion to
Defer to
table.
current.
you have to defer or table.
we're deferring or we're tabling. I would like to defer that we have a site visit.
Defer this matter until such a time where a site visit.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You just gotta say that though, it's the board, I can't actually.
Oh, I would like to defer, I would like to defer that we have a site visit.
Defer action on this
Yeah,
motion
defer action on this,
and schedule a site visit.
to schedule a site visit
As soon as possible.
as soon as possible.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion, comment? Okay. All
I
those in-
applaud you.
Yeah.
For doing something with this building.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a great
I'm just
project.
helping him out, so congratulations to you.
As long as I've been here, I don't think it's been taking 30 years, 40 years.
No, I think a site visit would be very informative for both us and for you. We can certainly assist with a lot of the detailing that might ensue based on what we observe.
I hate to interrupt a lively conversation, but for purposes of the record, I think we should do a quick vote.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's carried. So speak to Christopher or
I
Aaron.
was expecting a gavel slam.
Probably want to hit us over the head. Talk to Aaron or Christopher about scheduling a site visit. We will make ourselves available as quickly as possible. Understand the urgency of the project. We're happy to see the project go forward. Want to help you in any way we can.
So can we talk timeline? So if you were to meet within the next week or two, gave us direction, we were able to update our plans, would we be back for the October meeting for approval, or do we have to come back for official approval? How does that
Yes,
work?
so we will send out a doodle, what we've done in the past, we'll send out a doodle to the members. We can't have a quorum, so it'll only be 3 members
Yeah.
at the site visit. We will schedule that, and then as long as we have the revised documents in time, we can then place the item back on the agenda for a hearing in October.
Okay.
If we have enough time to get you moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
That would be the
I'll
goal.
communicate all those dates to you and everything, so you have them.
Great, thank you.
One more comment. There's a really good source of technical information on the National Park Service website. And you want to look at the preservation briefs. And you don't have to read all of them, but the ones that are useful to you will be very, very useful. Whether it's kind of mortar or other material or brownstone patching. So it's all for the National Park Service, the preservation.
It's good information.
Thank you so much.
All right,
for your
thank
investment.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for you.
Oh, Break that out.
I got another one after that, so keep that. Self-nomination.
I want to do is I want to get this,
Good.
so it's to call.
Yes, and then the other 6 are. Yeah, this was received right after we sent it. It was the day after.
Hey, guys.
Sorry.
I feel so mad.
That's, I've explained it to John.
Okay.
Aaron, what we may want to do is have a brief letters that we have not seen
What letters have we-
for this item and the next item?
Which you will have to vote to accept. You guys don't have to vote to review. Okay, so you're past the deadline.
And I would just. That's fine. Jack has that.
Yes, so I would do your motion first to choose if you guys as a board wish to accept and review these during the recess. Do the additional public comments if you guys wish for more people who want to sign up to speak if they are here. And then after the recess, you guys will have had time to review this, we can go to the next one. So, two motions?
Wait, so what,
So,
for public comment, the chair has full discretion, you just say yes or no, essentially. If you want to allow people to make public comment, that's up to you. You guys could have a vote as well, if you want to be democratic about it, that might be a little quicker.
Could I understand the nature of the letters about this project? Do we have opposition letters about it, or what's the?
There is one letter that was provided by one of the properties that are being considered for the update, and then the other 6 letters are for the following agenda item. But these are letters that were, the top letter was submitted within the timeline, it just didn't make it in the packet, and then the other 6 were submitted after, but again, John can make the discretion to just accept them.
And these are not letters that you sent out that I read this morning?
No.
Right.
Oh, I
They
see.
were,
Yeah.
they were ones that came in either late last night or first thing this morning.
So the first item is to, does the commission wish to accept the letters that came in after the timeframe? If so, have a 10-minute recess to review this information, then reconvene to follow up on the next 2 items.
So for additional public comments,
And, also, if people that are here, want to sign up to make comments, we can entertain that as well.
I move that we review the additional letters that came in and open for additional public speakers. We'll review the letters, take a recess, and then reconvene. In 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
In 10 minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We will take a recess for 10 minutes. There are vending machines downstairs. There are bathrooms up on this floor as well as downstairs. If you wish to take a break, we will be back at approximately 7:29. If anybody wishes to sign up to speak and didn't get the chance, we have a sign-up sheet. Please provide your name, the municipality that you live in, and the application or address of the item that you're speaking on.
So, just so.
necessary to send it online?
If you already signed up, we have you on a list. If you haven't signed up, this is,
So just so you guys are aware, the packet, the top letter from the Boys and Girls Club is irrelevant to the Center Square update. They are one of the buildings being considered for the update. The other 6 letters, they're one of the buildings being
Yes.
updated. The other 6 letters are for the tutor nomination following, but all of them, again, have
Located where?
Can you classify, are the rest of the letters support or opposition for the two?
I believe, if I remember, all of them are for support. The Boys and Girls Club is in opposition to.
Yes, thank you.
I haven't understood a thing you guys are
Stacy, you're not a preservationist yet?
I'm over there Googling what is a parrot, like, oh.
I'm gonna defer to you.
Okay, we've got 9 minutes and 31 seconds
You guys left.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Okay.
Yes, we sold our house in Providence Creek and Ellen, Lee, John. It's like,
Hey, how you doing?
yes, we sold our house finally in Providence Creek to Neil Memorial Hospital. It looks like Loudonville, but it's so weird because it's very suburban. So it has a big street. It's designed with but we can live all on one level if we wish. That's nice. And that was aging in place was the goal.
That's
And that, yeah.
Do it before you need to.
Yeah, right, totally, and yes, that I took her upstairs, we have two bedrooms. And I just exciting into our gym was my games. Yes, we and somebody bought our house, we have lived with friends with them. So they don't want us to do Ella she just the worst to say. Yeah, so it turns out somebody knew. I don't know. But this is finally. Thank you.
All right, thanks, good to see you. Oh, I think I've got enough copies of it. I've got two. I mean, my both have copies. Yeah.
She's dead.
Well, so,
They that are like $30.
Sorry, I didn't borrow. Yeah, most important, don't do that one's valuable. Everything else I have to say.
This is disappointing. Which one? Oh. Wait, can't we just be, can't we just exclude that? No, oh, definitely that. We can't exclude one. Well, I wasn't sure. But, well, so, and it doesn't really matter, because if it's just one, you have to have a majority owner authorization. And it's not really our, like, we're just recommending support there. The SHPO doesn't have, so we're not really, we're just kind of getting our thumbs up, as I understand it. So, but the whole idea with the boundary designation is that it's wrapping in history, so you can't not wrap it in history.
Right, so because of this, are we now going to one of our what do we do?
I would,
Yeah, okay.
I would still recommend it.
Right, okay.
I mean, they're just gonna do it. And it doesn't actually matter, because it's already an eligible district, so it's not restricting them in any way. It's already eligible because they have this eligible district expansion. So any reviews are gonna happen whether it gets listed or not, because it's eligible listed. So it doesn't actually affect them.
Okay. Did she say that?
Yeah. I don't know. He was. Earlier, like, did you say? I don't know if anyone was aware of it, but it's 25.
Okay. the cars owned with someone's car. Are you okay? I'm good. Everybody's good. Did you ever get married? Oh, wait, I no, Amy. She got engaged. And she just moved now. It's the same. Kids are awesome. Walking down the street. She was here to help. She was walking one direction and Ryan and I walked the other. And we waved, but she did. We didn't stop to chat because we were walking and I just thought she was Emma. Right. Like Emma was right there. And I just assumed. And then Roger and I were like halfway walking the next shop. We're halfway on the block. And I was like, oh my God, there's Emma. Wait, I had more to do then. There was and then so
Yeah.
she's we're lucky that the name is because what it might have been like anyway, that's how we are. No, Miles is a senior. So I've gone, so he's working on his common app right now, and writing his essays. So he's starting 10th grade. We were in 12th grade. So when he's starting 12th grade, we're starting 10th grade, and we're on tour. What's he like? He likes the big, like hey, it's kind of already Ohio. Michigan. Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah, he did Western Ohio. And that's not that would make me see. So we'll see. We'll see. And I'm pushing him to I'm like, just not only gonna do the stadiums now. Yeah, it's right there. Versus like Michigan, we didn't go. And yeah, we didn't see it. She's starting to year. She's taking a Logan art engineering class, which is a cross-listing. And she's back. Well, this is just a bit. But yeah. So she's still doing computer programs. She's like, she's working so I'm not, when she describes the job she has, I'm like, that is I'm also like, that's owner representative and then somebody to do.
I was like, maybe, you know, let's figure out the big story.
I like that.
Extend the recess.
I think they can.
No, that's fine.
I was gonna say, I don't know.
There's no requirement.
We got locked down.
So they're letting you know, It's just
That'd be great. Yeah, anyway, there's
Jesus said we could just.
All right, everyone, I think we're about to get started again. We're just waiting on one person to come back, so everyone wants to take their seats and prepare yourselves.
I think he, so that was a lot. Let's jump. Yeah, Eric. So good. There he is.
We are back in session, please. All right, next item on the agenda is the National Register update, Center Square, Hudson Park.
Excuse me, could you speak up?
Oh, okay. The next item on the agenda is the Center Square Hudson Park National Register update, which is it's within the boundary that was originally established for the district, but there were structures that when it was originally designated, those structures were determined to be intrusions or not significant to the period of the initial evaluation, which was 1980. Now those buildings they generally were between 1946 and 1957 was the time frame in which they were constructed. They have now reached 50 years plus of age, and they are now eligible and can be considered on their own merits as contributing structures to the district. And that's the matter, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're taking up at this juncture. So, Christopher, you have all the documentation here. I will defer to you.
Could I ask a clarifying question? I just want to confirm that. So we are supporting the nomination. We are not voting on approving a nomination.
Yes.
That happens to ship that ship.
Yes, that ship was level for this.
This is our
And
usual.
we're only,
Yeah.
we're only voting to recommend
Yes.
that, and that recommendation would go to the Common Council. The Common Council is the only body that.
No, it would go to SHPO.
It would go to SHPO.
So because this is an update to the National Register of Historic Districts, State National Register of Districts, as a certified local government, we are required to hold the public hearing to take public comment, either in person or written comment. And then we make a recommendation of whether or not the board supports or does not support the update that gets forwarded to the state, to SHPO, the State Preservation Office, to then be presented at the State Review Board on September 12th.
I just wanted to make that sure.
Okay, thank you.
And I have one other point of clarification direction. We are looking at this package not to say, yes, this, no, that one. It's a whole package that we're being provided.
Yes. I mean, if there were comments that you wanted to include, whether or not you agree with the public letter that was submitted by the Boys and Girls Club, you can always put forth some comments for consideration for SHPO as part of the recommendation.
But first we're gonna hear a presentation and then and then we comment.
Yeah, I'll present a bit of the kind of a smaller summary, and then we have all of the photographs of the properties that we can.
Great, okay.
So the applicant is Preservation Studios, Derek King. He's just unable to be here tonight. So the as was stated in the packet, it proposes updating the National Register's period of significance, which would reclassify 9 properties. They are, just make sure I've got the list. They are 21 to 25 Delaware Ave, the Boys and Girls Club of Albany, 85 Dove Street, the Environmental Advocates of New York, 255 Lark Street, the 259 Lark Street, 244 State Street, also known as 90 South Swan Street, 258 State Street or 75 Chestnut, 254 State, 324 State, 100 Swan. And so as a certified local government, the City of Albany's Historic Resource Commission is required to hold a public hearing as part of the nomination process or update process. The planning department notified the property owners within 250 feet of the properties noted, not the entire district. And the commission then, as we, will take comment and prepare a report whether or not to support or not support it. As the project stands, the staff believes this application to update the period of significance and reclassification is in the best interest of City of Albany's preservation plan and is a necessary function of the CLG. Staff has not identified any adverse effects of any of the properties outside of as submitted by the Boys and Girls Club's letter about their own property, and planning staff recommends supporting this district update.
So I'll put forward that I think that the Boys and Girls Club is an important part of this update, and I recommend this entire district. I support this, what am I supposed to say? I support this National Register district expansion. It's an expansion of the period of significance and adding additional properties. Is it changing the boundary?
No, so it is updating the period of significance and reclassifying 9 buildings from previously considered non-contributing to contributing structures.
I also, if you guys would like, we can go through each building and I can give the submitted property description for them, and if you guys want to let me do.
No.
I don't know what you guys want, so.
We're all familiar with it.
Was that a motion?
Oh, could I move?
No, I thought it was. a
No,
motion.
I'm just putting out
Okay.
there for the
You
ether.
could make a
that
motion. Anyone can make a motion at any time to push forward.
I'll move that we recommend this amendment to the National Register district nomination to change the property classification and period of significance as proposed.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Can we go back to the Boys and Girls Club? A couple years ago, we saw kind of a concept proposal. I think it was Demling, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Remember, yeah, and how would this impact? Kind of, it was a pretty exciting presentation, I recall.
So this is just an update to the National Register.
Yeah.
This would open up the ability for them to access tax credits for any type of like rehabilitation, renovation project at the site. Now, there's always a possibility that if they were going to use public funds, they would have to go for a Section 106 review, and there would be some sort of review and possible impact on their funding. So whether or not, whether the project is deemed appropriate or not appropriate.
But that happens whether
That
it's
happens.
listed or not,
That's correct.
so that doesn't have the.
That's correct.
Well, as a non-contributing structure, currently, they don't have access to those funds unless they were to get a determination of eligibility.
But if this district, if the classification change doesn't get approved and it's still an eligible contributing property under an eligible district, period of significance expansion, and it's locally designated, so it still has to come to us.
It would still have to come to us. I mean,
So
no matter
it doesn't,
what, like
I don't understand this
think
letter.
Oh,
Oh, I think so.
I mean, there could
Yeah.
still be an impact on public funds about whether or not, and I think
Yeah.
that's where they get a little bit leery that there could be
But there's
more
still the-
stringent reviews than what they currently would go through as a non-contributing structure.
Right, I'm just stating for the
Yeah.
record that they're still eligible because there is on record now, I'm assuming in SHPO, there is a layer that says this is an eligible district date, period of significance expansion. And I would assume, under 1409 and 106, they have the same level of review. So any concerns about that should be mitigated. And even seeker now says they get reviewed if it's eligible. So there's no additional review that happens, but the motion still stands.
I think you had a second as well.
Yes.
So-
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I want to finish that question that I asked. So we saw a concept for work at this property. And how would that be affected? That was considered to be a viable use of this property, an appropriate location, and I think we were very positive in our response to what we saw. So how would that be affected by this expansion?
I mean, it would now go, I mean, depending on.
So that would all hinge on a further decision by SHPO, not on the current question of us supporting the district update. I understand why you're asking, because the question is if we do support it and then SHPO does do it.
No, that wasn't really my question.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. I
so
wasn't
they,
clear.
Okay.
they had a, and I'm thinking about it, Marilyn, I'm sorry. They had a previous, update everybody else, they had a previous proposal where they were looking at the possibility of applying for ARPA funds and doing some other fundraising to demolish the existing structure and build back a modern community, boys and girls community center.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to submit for review. I mean, we would have circulated this probably anyways to SHPO because of the possible funding sources and things like that as part of the seeker review. So I guess it would come down to whether their funding and what SHPO and MPS would say now that this is considered a contributing structure within the National Register. I mean, under the HRC's guidelines, the demolition would have gone to the planning board as it is locally considered non-contributing, as we have yet to update our local listing for this district. And then any new construction going back still have to come to the HRC for construction and then historic district.
It's my experience that the state and the feds in their review for regulatory review or tax credit or whatever, that they consider the date periods within the nominations, especially those that are older. They're not locked into those dates of that district. That to some degree it's a 50-year marker that's kind of traveling on top of the district itself. I've run into that on a couple of projects. So I think to be consistent, I'm in support of this this proposed expansion of the chronology of the district, because I think it really is consistent with what our colleagues in the state and the National Park Service or the Advisory Council are doing with their projects. And I would rather be aligned with them in approach than giving confusing information because we're not necessarily aligned. So that's a comment in support of the proposal.
Are there any other comments in support of the proposal? I'll call it to a vote then. All those in favor of the proposal as made and
Aye.
those opposed? No, okay. Now on to the feature presentation. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Historic District nomination for the Holland Avenue Tudor Historic District. This is a package that was put together by Historic Albany Foundation, providing the the rationale behind the expansion or the designation of this as a historic district. The commission is here to decide whether to recommend this go to the Common Council for action or deny the action.
So it's a recommendation to either support the nomination, the
Right.
common council has the ability to approve or disapprove, has the final say in the designation as the can take action to approve or disapprove the nomination. So we will just be making a recommendation this evening that'll then be forwarded.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Sure, sorry, Dan.
I have hard of hearing.
You're so young. So as I was saying, the presentation tonight and the nomination that is before the Historic Resources Commission is for review and recommendation. The commission will either make a recommendation to support or not support the nomination to create a historic district for these 6 properties. That will then be forwarded on with the record, the presentation and the record to the city clerk. The clerk's office will then place the nomination on the agenda for a common council subcommittee meeting of the Land Use and Economic Development Subcommittee, who will then review it and will vote it out to a formal full meeting of the City of Albany's Common Council, and the Common Council has the final action in either approving or disapproving the nomination. If they approve it, the designation is then forwarded on to the city clerk, and the owners and the adjacent owners to the historic district are notified formally of the properties being designated. This evening is just for the presentation by Kara from Historic Albany Foundation, public comment, and entering into record the letters that we did receive.
Kara, it's yours.
Right. So the 6 buildings on Holland Avenue are eligible under multiple criteria under the ordinance. They embody the distinctive characteristic of a type of architecture, the style. They possess high artistic value. They identify with a historic person who has made a significant impact on Albany, Jesse Leonard. Sorry. Would you like me to start over?
I'm ready. No, keep
Okay.
going.
They identify with Jesse Leonard and the Leonard Realty Company that was a substantial builder in the late 19th, early 20th century, building over 650 homes within the city of Albany. They also embody pretty much all of the distinguishing characteristics for the Tudor Revival style, making them canonical examples of the style. They're also the work of a designer who is significantly influenced in age, also Jesse Leonard, and also his staffer, Josephine Johnson, who I'll talk a little bit more about. We're learning lots more about unknown female designers in the city of Albany through this project. And they also represent an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood due to their singular physical characteristics on Holland Avenue. They're the only single-family residences that seem to have ever been built on Holland Avenue. And are so noticeable, they kind of have their own moniker. As if you say Holland Avenue to anyone, they will know exactly which home you're talking about. So to get into just very briefly on history, I know it's very late and everyone's ready to go home. That's good. I'm not boring yet. So Jesse Leonard and the Leonard family were very, very prominent builders in Albany. Jacob Leonard, the father, started building in the 1860s. He was building single-family homes all throughout the Center Square, Hudson Park, and the South End neighborhoods. Around 1862, he acquired 2 large tracts of land, looking to finally start doing substantial development in whole neighborhoods at a time, as opposed to one parcel here, one parcel there. One of those parcels is a western parcel off of Washington Avenue, just to the north, where North Manning Boulevard is, and as we call them, the presidential streets are right now. The other parcel was adjacent to the penitentiary that was about to be demolished. It was a very large tract of land, off from Delaware to what would be Lexington Avenue, I believe it's Mercer, to pretty much Dash, there's no street there. His family moved to the lone building that existed on that parcel, a farmhouse, and he began to subdivide and build on Mercer, Providence, Warren, which then was renamed Lemon Place. He did construction with his son Jesse up until his death in the early 1900s. After his death, the company wildly took off, and instead of building a few buildings every year, this building.
Mr. Chairman, is this presentation subject to the same 3-minute that you don't want us to speak?
No, sir.
No.
Also, when it's time for like people who signed up to speak, you're able to speak, but technically, if you're in the audience and someone else is giving public comment, we just ask that you respect that. No one speak over anyone or make other comments while that's going on.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Next, big improvement in numbers of building.
Thank you. So as Jesse and I took off, he began promoting all of the buildings that he and his father had created, and were really creating a market for themselves. They were developing pamphlets that were basically selling buildings housewives, explaining, you want a bungalow because they're easy to clean and raise your children in. It was really kind of a revolutionary way to sell buildings in the city of Albany. He was also doing rent-to-own programs so that anyone can own a home. The buildings he was building were not for the elite of Albany. They were for blue-collar families, so everyone could have the American dream. Everyone could own their own home. And that was one of his major goals. He was a huge philanthropist in Albany, even offering to donate the land for Highland Avenue itself to the city, which they then turned down. So he was a major player in development in Albany, really from 1900 up until his death in the 1950s. As I mentioned, there were several newspaper articles citing that he and his company built over 650 homes. They also cite that a number of homes, potentially 600 of them, it's not clear an exact count, but they reference over 600 homes that were designed by Josephine Johnston, who for many years is listed as a secretary for the realty company, and then in 1940s finally listed as a draftsman for the company. And these newspaper articles are describing her as kind of the brains behind many of these designs, even before 1940. And they're a reason that, why women want to live in these homes. They're easy to raise your children because they're laid out in such a way that makes sense, because they're designed by a woman, for women. Which is really revolutionary. I can't think of a single architect or draftswoman in the city of Albany that we know about or celebrate. So seeing anything like that in print is really a big deal. Her home was 100 Holland Avenue. She and Jesse lived there from around 1940 up until both of their deaths. As I mentioned, the large part of this nomination is really the buildings themselves. They're spectacular examples of the Tudor revival style. And I love that one of the criteria for listing is that they have a high artistic value, which these buildings absolutely exemplify. They are each very unique, very different, even though the floor plans are similar. They all have different styles of half timbering. They all have different groupings of polychrome stone and clinker brick. It's really amazing how they built these buildings. The stained glass, there's no detail that was left untouched, whether it was inside or outside. Even the tiny sloping on all of the copper roofs. I mean, truly, the attention to detail on these is absolutely stunning. And again, they're not homes for wealthy families. These are blue-collar families that are living in these amazing homes. So they're absolutely fantastic examples. I'd rather field questions than just talk at you, as all of you have seen the nomination. I don't have any questions. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does public comment happen next?
The chair would call public comment. They finish the presentation. So.
Well, I think the owner's representative.
Okay.
Yeah, the owner's representative wishes to speak, and we would not hold you, we would hold you to a 10-minute time frame rather than the 3-minute time frame because of the,
I think I can do it in less than 10 minutes.
okay. Shall I
But
set
thank
the,
you, I
shall I
appreciate
set the
that.
timer or? No, okay.
My name is Nancy Carey Cassidy. As I said, I represent the owner of the properties on Holland Avenue. This application is being submitted without the consent of the property owner, and I think that's unprecedented. We not only were not asked to consent, we're not informed that the application was being made until the City of Albany informed us. And that was on August 26th. We had less than 8 days to go through an 81-page submission, and it's frankly not enough time. While the application is well organized, the photos are extremely old. Current conditions are not represented in the photographs in the submission. We did send photographs to the planning department yesterday, so that you can see what things look like. I want to address the concept of demolition by neglect because it's false. We stopped renting in 2008 as student renters were damaging the properties and leaving town at the end of the semester owing back months of rent. We had no recourse to collect because we weren't able to work through the colleges and universities. There was liability concerns with continuing to rent to students. We therefore approached the Renaissance Corporation as they were part of University Heights and could in fact rent through the universities, therefore holding a student's transcript if they didn't pay their rent. They did a completely review, but with the rents that were being gotten, they said that it's just economically not viable, so they didn't proceed with the project. In 2017, the city rezoned the parcels MCCU, which does not allow individual residences. They cannot be occupied. The historic overlay is inconsistent with the city's planning vision. We then approached Habitat for Humanity, Historic Albany, and other housing organizations about repurposing them and relocating them across Holland Avenue and taking the various parts to reconstruct at least 2 of them, and they would have been donated to Habitat Humanity. We worked on that for several years. Eventually, we were turned down. We then registered with the City of Albany Building Department, who instructed us to board them up and close them. Over the years, vandals have broken in repeatedly. They've stolen all the copper, all the electrical wires. This has left the buildings with no water or electricity, and therefore no way to temper the inside temperature, which is why you see some of the delamination that's going on inside. People have broken in for squatting. This week, we found someone else attempting to squat, and we're in the process removing their cardboards and their tarpons and all the other things that they're hiding in the bushes. They've become an attractive nuisance and a liability for them to remain as is. A careful and safe removal is the best option. We don't want to see a Kenwood or Grand Street happen here. We're not sure if this application is about preservation, given how much has gone on over time, or just tying us up from proceeding. If this passes, the buildings are going to remain in their current shape, with only further decay. We urge you to not deny the application, but not allow an extended period so it can thoroughly respond to the 81-page submission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, how long have you owned the properties?
We've owned they started in the 1970s, and over time, acquired from them.
Remember approximately when the 6th one, the last one was acquired?
It would probably be in the late 80s. Let's guess.
And just because obviously we have a recorded record, the photos you did provide were presented to the commission's packets. They just weren't prepared for the PowerPoint. So the commission did have the ample time I had noted to review them. I just wanted that on the recorded record.
Any other questions?
I guess on the topic of the notification of the mailing, the planning department did send out certified mail notices to PCOT as well as the surrounding neighboring property owners, informing them of the meeting and the nomination. The 10-day deadline that we have for legal noticing for any type of application was actually August 26th. That would have given us ample time. That was 10 days.
Can't hear you.
10 days, that the deadline for public noticing, which is legally required within the Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance, the deadline for that was Monday, August 26th. We did receive the return certified mail slips that PCOT did receive those notices by the deadline, so they did receive the notice in the 10 days of the public hearing. Although, as part of the Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance was adopted in 2017, these buildings were and still are classified as single-family residences, so they are legal non-conforming properties. Just because these properties would be designated, or the possibility of designating these properties, it does not mean that they have to solely be used as single-family structures. There could be incorporated into possible reuses that do meet the permitted uses within the mixed-use community urban zoning district.
But they could be used for single family, they're pre-existing.
No, because they were not occupied at the time of the rezoning. So the city has told us they were not, they're not grandfathered, they're not considered non-conforming under zoning.
Okay, well, we can look into that as well, into our non-conformity section of the code as well. That they wouldn't be prohibited from being used as, for a use that is permitted within the mixed-use community urban.
Could you review what uses are permitted in the current zoning?
I mean, it is.
Without it not taking too long, but are there other restrictions? I mean, could it be used for group housing? Could it be used for, I'm just trying to understand, are there additional limitations, or is this a flexible zoning?
My computer stopped,
Here,
starts working.
I'll say
Give me 1 second, I can tell you. I'll pull up the permitted use table.
And could I also ask a point of clarification while you're doing that? Because our designation and criteria has to do with what was presented in terms of artistic value and association with individuals, and is not related to use, right? We're not designating as to,
Correct. So
regardless of what the use of the building might be.
The historic resource overlay does not restrict use of a property. Any type of proposed use still needs to be in compliance with the zoning district that it is located. So if there are additional, review standards, sometimes it may have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals, or it may have to go before the Planning Board, depending on what they're proposing to use the property as. But again, the purview of the use does not fall with the HRC.
My point about the use is they're not economically viable.
What?
Economically viable, because they
Where
can't
did you
be.
say that?
So,
Can we,
I'm sorry.
can we allow the owner's representative to answer questions and not be interrupted?
Also provide a explanation. The point of this is for the applicant, whomever else is speaking and sitting at the table, to speak to the board. If you are in the audience, it's not your turn to speak. Please do not interrupt. You are not here to ask questions of the applicant. We just try to be respectful of everyone.
Actually, pull this up.
Classification of single family detached,
Correct.
not permitted in the MUCU zone.
So they could be for within, so the MUCU stands for mixed use community urban. What is permitted is a live work dwelling, so someone could have an office as well as live in the structure. It could be used for a multi-use, which is 4 or more units. It could be used as an assisted living facility or nursing home, community residential facility, dormitory, group living, which is a conditional use, so it would need to go before the planning board. Community center, cultural facility, daycare center, higher education center, conditionally hospital. The religious institution, conditionally as a school or stadium or arena. A bar or tavern, a cannabis consumption site, which has other restrictions on it.
It's already being used as a cannabis consumption.
A restaurant, a bed and breakfast, a hotel, beauty salon, blood plasma center. Oh, I'm sorry, you cannot use blood plasma. Wrong one, I apologize. Conditionally as a funeral home, laboratory research facility, medical clinic, office, personal business, professional office, trade school. I mean, indoor recreation and entertainment.
That's a very comprehensive list.
Yes,
Thank you. It just goes on, like.
That was what I was interested
It is
in.
all available online for our permitting use tables.
I also just want to add real quick, it is no longer prior non-conforming use, that does not apply. Everything that was just listed is the only thing that does apply. It's vacant for more than a year and not maintained under the prior non-conforming use, it is that status. So the owner was correct in saying that that does not apply.
And I'd like to add, if you've ever seen the floor plan in Renaissance, part of their conclusion, the entrances are very narrow, the entrances to the bathrooms are very narrow. Renaissance concluded they would not be able to make these ADA compliant, and therefore not be able to rent them to college students.
Erin, I have a question. The SHPL letter says the eligibility determination 2011.
So
That's a long, I mean, we've all been.
so in the,
Yes.
in the packet,
Yes,
they did issue a determination of eligibility in 2011. But as we stated in the packet, as of the 3rd, the State Historic Preservation Office has updated it to the determination of eligibility, kind of building off of the 2011. These structures are still considered eligible for listing on the state national register.
and what's in my mind is we've all watched, they're very prominent buildings. They're a pretty substantial blemish on in my opinion, on the lack of a thorough and comprehensive and proactive preservation aesthetic in the city of Albany. It's obviously complicated in private ownership, but the 2011 is 13 years ago, and so there's been a lot of attention to these buildings for quite a long time. I understand the challenges of rehabilitating them, and I work on all kinds of buildings with different challenges to rehabilitation. So I understand those are there, I understand the code, I understand lots of pieces of it, but they've just stood out as such important buildings and so emblematic of how we treat our historic resources in the city that it's frankly, as a citizen, I can speak to that as not a commissioner, it's been kind of an embarrassment that these buildings have been not recognized and not received the attention that they are due as architectural components of our city and such visible components of our city. So the fact that there's been so much effort and time gone into the recognition of these buildings. So again, 2011, that's 13 years ago, but it didn't start in 2011. I don't know the whole, how many years it took forward for their vacant, how long this ownership has been. I'm respectful of the efforts that have been done. But a committed effort would find these buildings extraordinarily valuable and able to be rehabilitated. And I just see I'm glad to see this come before the commission.
May I ask, are these 6 parcels that are then assessed by the city of Albany? And if so, what is the assessment on each one of them? And we're all getting bills that now say fair market value. What are the if we just treat them as a one-family house that could be put for sale, what's the fair market value of each one of them based on the assessor of the city of Albany? What are they appraised for?
We haven't gotten a current tax assessment yet on these properties.
It's listed on the website.
I thought I saw in one of the letters that they're assessed
90,
91.
92, 100.
I think I saw in the letter that at least one of them was assessed at 91,000. And I believe there was a letter that said there was a comparable building was assessed or sold, I can't remember, for 300,000 or 400,000. I'm just not remembering that. Am I remembering that? Who else read that letter? Am I making this up?
Yeah, you're comparable.
Yeah. So they seem under-assessed.
Well, perhaps that appreciates the deterioration that's happened over the last few years. But I know what's been going on everywhere, including my own neighborhood, where properties has gone up by huge amounts within the means that if we were to say this wouldn't have a great economic value to be sold as a one-family house 5 years ago, for example, we wouldn't say the same thing today, because the price of a one-family house, particularly if you knew that all 6 of them were sold as one-family houses, and if you got anywhere near the assessed valuation of it or even more, I would think a bank would be willing to bring things up to date to code. I think.
Except, again, they cannot be occupied under zoning as a one-family house.
Pardon me?
They cannot be occupied as one-family house under the zoning.
So the zoning would have to be changed?
The city would even do that because, this is part of the comprehensive zoning in the entire city of Albany.
Well, it does seem like there are a lot of other economically viable uses.
There are alternatives.
Like a bed and breakfast or an artist-led workspace, or that, I'm not sure what a comparable commercial assessment would be. And the letter, I think, was specific to single-family houses, but, yeah, I agree.
We've also commented on other proposed zoning changes that have come forward to us. You see,
Zoning map amendments as part of other larger development plans?
no, I mean, the whole move for the comprehensive plan, of course, was to get away from any spot zoning for changes. But we see proposed zoning changes that kind of fine tune within a neighborhood or within a block. So I'm not afraid here that there's.
There are some
Yes.
occasions where there is what's called a zoning map amendment, and usually it's either in order for that to happen, generally like the zoning district has to be in compliance with like an abutting zoning district. Like we're not gonna spot change in a very specific area, but it's usually a much larger to bring it into compliance with maybe like an abutting zoning district.
So from a planning perspective, just for information, that's not really our favorite. From a planning perspective, would a group of, conceptually, might a group of 6 buildings that had been single family, might they be successful going through a special use permit or is required for single family?
Probably not. It would most likely be a use called a use variance, for them to be able to use those properties as single family residences.
So there's a process.
We have not approved a use variance since 2017 because of that.
Because of conflict. But there's a process.
I mean, and again, we're not saying that they have to be used as single family
Understood.
residences, it can fall, there are a lot of other options available with these properties. And, yeah.
I also will just note for how our agenda is moving as well, there is still public comment from signed up individuals. If you guys, once you're, obviously, whenever you guys feel ready to move on, that's up to you guys. So just remember.
Thank you.
The next speaker that signed up is Dan Hirschberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Hirschberg from Hirschberg and Hirschberg, representing 44 Holland LLC. We made the application to the city to demolish these 6 buildings in connection with construction of a medical office building. I would hold that we're in the MUCU zone. Therefore, the current things would be non-conforming uses. But I would hold that if 44 Holland want to go back in and rehabilitate them and use them for single-family dwellings, they would not be allowed to do it because the use has lapsed. They've been vacant for 15 years. There's no use of these as single-family detached dwellings anymore. That's lapsed. Consequently, they would have to go and get a use variance or have the zoning changed. A use variance, they don't meet any of the tests for a use variance. Consequently, the use variance should be denied by the zoning board of appeals. That's just my zoning opinion, but I'll leave it to the council to advise you differently. My major consideration here is that there are plenty of different types of housing. When I built my first house, I designed it with a Tudor design, 20 Valley View Drive, and all a nice Tudor design on it. I like the Tudor design. But there are plenty of dwellings. I point out other dwellings owned and built by the Leonard Group, up off Western Avenue, Tudor Road, Homestead Avenue, and 3 or 4 other streets have a concentration of homes built in the Tudor design without the half timber treatment that the Tudor design is known for. The shape of the buildings, they all have the same sort of intricate use of roofs and things to make them look like Tudors. They just never built them with that sort of treatment. There are plenty of other houses built from 1890 to 1932 along Delaware Avenue and other places that are maybe unique types of houses. Maybe they deserve their own determination if they're worthy of saving. There are thousands of different types of dwellings. We went through this in the Pine Bush area where we were talking about the craftsman houses that were built over there. So all the craftsman houses in the city be turned into historic areas. It is not proper to take the design of the buildings as a rationale for setting up an historic district. The major difference here was the design here was unique along Holland Avenue. Everything else on Holland Avenue is now multifamily or higher. We worked on 44 Holland Avenue and was constructed in the 1970s. We built a large parking lot behind the site. I have a long history involved with this site. I worked with Nancy to try to get people willing to take these buildings and move them. And we actually tried to talk to Habitat for Humanity for a while. We talked to everybody. There was no use there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person signed up is 3-minute timer.
Yeah, Aaron.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I should get it up now.
Julie Lindgren.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Julie Lundgren. I am a resident of the city of Albany. And I sent you a copy of this letter, but so I urge you to approve the proposed nomination for historic district designation of the Holland Avenue Tudors. These are iconic buildings with sublime brickwork, unique design details like stained glass, an interior tile fountain, carved plaster work on the walls. You have everything before you in the application to show the many reasons that these buildings should be granted this historic status. So I will not repeat those. I discovered these buildings in 2008, shortly after I moved to the city. I live in the Melrose neighborhood, but made regular detours across town to admire these homes. Their own private sidewalk, the architectural details, the cluster of homes framed by trees and lawn. I got to tour the interior and was even more amazed, and then to be shocked by their neglect and the lack of accountability for their deterioration of the buildings in plain view of the public. A question many of us had and many neighbors have asked is, why have they been allowed to deteriorate at all? This cluster of buildings is the life and light of Holland Avenue, the most scenic area amidst office buildings and a sea of parking lots front and back. That does not make them undesirable, as some have called them, but rather increases their value to the landscape, the neighborhoods, and to the hundreds of people who work at the hospitals and schools around it. These homes should be valued and a source of pride. They should be designated as historic district, and one hopes to be treated like a treasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nancy Goody.
Good evening. Nancy Goody, Historic Preservation, Master of Science in Historic Preservation, so I feel like I have something to weigh in here. As Historic Albany has clearly pointed out in their proposed historic district, the area around and containing the 6 Tudor-style homes on Holland Avenue meets several listing criteria. I won't list those criteria here because you already have that information, and others may comment on that specific information. Instead, I would like to make the case that these buildings greatly add to Albany's architectural heritage. These houses are unique. There is no other group of Tudor homes together intact in our city. These homes were built purposely for families to live in a community that is very different than what we see on the ground today. The area around these structures has been built up with modern buildings and parking lots, as Julie has referenced. The only building in the area that speaks to the Tudor style is the Fisher House across the street. These historic buildings provide a respite and a chance to breathe, figuratively and literally, as one drives or walks on Holland Avenue. The modern buildings were certainly not built with any intention to interplay with their historic neighbors. Jesse Leonard and his family created many houses throughout Albany in many neighborhoods. Therefore, recognizing these specific houses on that merit alone would make sense. They are a cohesive whole and at this point unoccupied and have not lost their integrity. These houses are actually in good shape and contain many interior features that are highly prized by people who care about historic properties. These properties were built together in just a few years and have a lot in common in their building materials, which are visible from the street. Just as one example of what is extant, most of the original light steel casement windows remain in the houses and intact. Considering that they have been neglected by their owner for many, many years, it's a wonder that these homes are in such good shape, and it's a merit to their builder that they are. As much as I love my city, it has had a very checkered history in preservation of historic structures, and I know I'm speaking to the choir when I say that, and others have talked about that. Here is a chance to recognize that these buildings are extremely significant to our city's histories. Local historic district status provides a measure of protection of these special buildings. Right now, these buildings have no protection, and it makes me wonder why this didn't happen sooner. I realize I'm running out of time. Clearly, these are significant buildings built by a significant Albany resident and has stood the test of time. They are mostly intact. They represent a specific type of work that was designed well and built well, and
Thank you. Greg Bell.
Hi, my name is Greg Bell. As a little bit of perspective, I was one of the first group of members of the Capitol Hill Architectural Review Commission appointed by the governor. And your body here is the successor organization. So it's very interesting to have that sort of perspective at what has happened in the meantime. During the time when the CHARC was established, there had been massive demolition for the construction of Empire State Plaza. And once the plaza was done, the massive part stopped, but there was continued pressure all over the place. It was only because of CHARC and some other sources that that process slowed down. Now, when you turn to these buildings, it's not a replica, definitely, of what happened before, but it feels awfully similar. Those who want to demolish historic buildings are not good advocates for coming up with uses for those buildings. Only people who have a different mindset are the ones who actually figure out how to do it. So I think you have to analyze who's proposing saving the buildings and who's proposing not to save the buildings. So, and I personally have liked these buildings since about 50 years ago when I got my very first professional job, which was located at 44 Holland Avenue next door, and in the Department of Mental Health. So I've been aware of these buildings for a long time, and I certainly think they are totally unique for Albany. And having watched demolition after demolition for decades now, I cannot believe that there is even a remote chance that these buildings might be demolished. So I urge all of you to make the designation as strong and as soon as possible. Thank you.
Sean Morris.
Good evening. My name is Sean Morris. I live at 24 Marinello Terrace in Albany. Thank you for the opportunity to speak publicly about my support for establishing an historic district and reusing the Tudor buildings on Holland Avenue. I am a board member for Historic Albany Foundation and for the Delaware Area Neighborhood Association. I also served on Albany's Common Council for 16 years, 4 of them as president and 12 representing the 7th Ward, which includes this property. I mention those affiliations to demonstrate a long-standing and multifaceted interaction with these properties and the neighborhoods surrounding them. Albany's buildings tell the story of our city and the people who live here. While these buildings have no official name, if you mention the Tudors to any Albanian, most will know exactly what you're talking about and express dismay at their deliberate deterioration. In the Delaware area, people who were born in the 20s and 30s and raised their own families here often spoke of the years that saw the growth of the institutions, the homes, and the roads that made new connections between their neighborhood and those on the other side of the ravines and orchards. The Tudors are part of that story. A new neighborhood being built and planned by people who had a hand in their own neighborhood, investing in growth even as the Depression took hold. In the last 30 years or so, neighborhoods across the city, particularly around University Heights, that's certainly where I had my experience with them, have organized often around issues concerning deteriorated or vacant buildings owned by landlords who simply don't care and often can't be found. At the same time, a wealthy and long-standing property company acquires useful, admired buildings, vacates them, and for all intents and purposes abandons them. That this has been allowed to happen and that the city has been complicit in this is a slap in the face of the families who have worked so hard to maintain their neighborhoods. It insults them, it insults the people who came before us and those of us who continue the fight. Are the buildings valuable as single-family homes? Who knows? Probably a process, but they certainly were prior to 2017. When these buildings were already well on their way to deterioration simply because The owners wouldn't market them, they wouldn't try to sell them, they wouldn't try to get people living there. Is there an opportunity for expansion? Of course there is. All over our own city, and certainly cities across the nation, we see older buildings being incorporated with more modern usages and structures. You can look at as simply as the Ronald McDonald House on South Lake Avenue a few blocks away, where they've incorporated those homes to serve a larger. Historic listing can be a jumping off point for both preserving and marketing or laying groundwork for development that's both forward looking. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Jane Schneider.
I appreciate the wonderful Historic Resources Commission allowing me to speak. I'm 81 and I have a problem, so I might make a little noise that I wish I didn't make. Just gonna stop right now. I was born in Albany. I grew up on South Manning Boulevard. My father's first cousin lived on Euclid Avenue. You look out at that neighborhood, these are very similar to the great and beautiful homes over there. We had Christmases over there. I have loved these buildings since I was able to see them. I went to St. Teresa's School. I went to BI. I developed a passion in very small t for loving architecture. I'm a member of the Society of Architectural Historians, which is a very big group here, which a lot of you don't know, and encompasses a lot of people in the surrounding area. We have just checked, and we have 300 members. We love buildings like this. We've never been allowed to go in them because the COT wouldn't, welcome us or open the door or care, using no bad terms. I feel this building group can stand up. I went to college in New Rochelle, to any housing groups like this in Westchester County. In fact, I'm prouder of these than I am with anything I see a lot of other places. These can be cultural icons for Albany. These are buildings. I called up to make sure where this meeting was. I called my old office, which is the Corporation Council. I used to work in the Corporation Council of the City of Albany. The woman said, "What is it you want to know?" "I want to know where the Historic Resource Committee meeting is." She took time, and I told her why. And she said, "You get down there and you fight for those buildings, all right?" So this is my story. I have a minute and 17 minutes. I'm ashamed of Albany. I agree with you, and I loved what you said. And I loved what every one of these people who are in favor of having pride in their city and are not here for raw greed. We have just come through a nightmare caused by, but I'm not going to go into it, but they will know what I'm talking about probably, and I hope they lose sleep over it. We need to have self-regard in this city. This is the greatest state in the union, and this is the capital city. You have here Jack McEnany, who has been our assemblyman and has done so much for individuals and businesses and causes, children and elderly people, and he is a prince. And I can tell you, this gentleman probably knew Norman Rice, who was a very close friend of mine. You can do something for raising the scope of how people talk about this used to be dirty city. I'm sick of that. We have the money, the brains, we have the best legislature in the country as far as I'm concerned. They pass the best laws. You look around, everybody comes here to find out how it should be done, and New York City, but we're a nice little capital. I have read in the newspaper that while the state population at 5 seconds is going down, Albany in the area is going up. You care about yourself, you look in the mirror, keep this, as you have suggested, be a historic gem, and do what we can. A draw beyond making people happy and who love it and who want to live here so they can go by it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just continuing y'all's discussion, just a reminder, the criteria is being listed under is B, C, D, and E, and F.
Could you repeat that more loudly? I couldn't
Sure,
hear it.
sorry.
Excuse me, if we could just watch the language, not make comments like that.
The The proposed Holland Tudor district, just to continue the commission's discussion, is on criteria B, C, D, E, and F.
Great.
Can we make a motion? Sure. I will also just state that, as of, sorry, I'm just doing it quick. As of this morning, we had received 31 letters, public comments. We will not be reading them into the record. There are a lot of comments and a lot of long letters. They are available online if anybody wishes to view them. We received 27 letters in support, 2 letters in opposition, and 2 letters providing additional comment and information. So I just would like to make you all aware of that. But we can make a motion. I would just go on.
I have a question, if
Yes.
I may. So Chris, I'm looking at the 9/3/24 information provided from Parks, from State Parks, Tabitha O'Connell.
It's at page 130.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay if you're not sure.
Yeah.
So I can-
And I'm trying to focus on what we are being asked to vote on.
Sure.
And so when I look here, and this is a nomination, historic district nomination, and that's what it's not about use and it's not about zoning and there's a whole series of things it's not about. And I want to be very, very clear as to what we are voting on. When I look at this letter, it tells us the criteria for inclusion in the National Register.
It's not, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's not as a national register, it's as the local,
As the-
a local historic district under the historic resource overlay.
Thank you. So that was what I'm trying to get clear on, because theirs are slightly different.
Slightly different.
So thank you. Okay, so could you review that for us?
Sure. So the letter that was provided by Tabitha O'Connell is, as it's a letter of eligibility for the National Register.
Yep.
What this is being reviewed under for a question of support is criteria B. It is identified with historic personages or events significant in local, state, or national history. Criteria C embodies the distinguishing characteristics of a cultural period and architectural style, a period or method of construction, or is a valuable example of the use of indigenous materials or craftsmanship. Criteria D, it is the work of a designer, architect, or builder whose work has significantly influenced an age. Criteria E represents an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood due to a unique location or singular physical characteristic. And criteria F possesses high artistic value. The criteria in the letter from Tabitha are separate, and while, again, it's supportive information, it's not what
But this is what we are.
Yes, these are what you are reviewing this under.
Because I'd be really excited to make this motion. I move that the Historic Resources Commission recommend support of this historic district nomination or local designation under the City of Albany Historic Resource Overlay Ordinance.
Second.
Yay.
Any further discussion? Or comments by commission members? I will call this to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Looks like we have a recommendation. And hopefully a strong one. That's a little too quick. We actually have time to
Need a
discuss
motion
that.
to adjourn.
Yeah, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I
move to adjourn.
Oh,
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
It's hard to find other things to say, things that are self-evident.
Yes. No,
Leaving tomorrow?
Yeah.